Welcome back to another episode of the Seric Show. Today we have another playoff breakdown with the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes. So let's start out with this offense here, Eric.
Right off the top, I want to say that I think this is the play-in series I'm most excited for. Beyond watching the Leafs, of course.
Yeah. I was about to say, that's a little bit, that's not true.
I love both of these teams and how they play. They've got a bunch of interesting players on them. And so it's a shame that one of these teams won't be moving beyond this 5-game series, but it should be exciting hockey, and fireworks seem to go off every time these teams play this season with some pretty high-scoring affairs. So it should be pretty exciting. It's hard not to start on offense with Artemi Panarin. Rightfully so, a Hart Trophy nominee with an incredible season, and even with a huge free agency contract.
Oh yeah,
I think he lived up to it.
I think he's one of the best free agent signings of all time.
Yeah, he completely helped turn this team around, and he made Ryan Strome almost a point-a-game player. Who, he's skilled, but he was kind of struggling at points in his career. So I think that's pretty remarkable.
I think everywhere he's gone, he's been a force to be reckoned with. Patrick Kane is quoted with saying that Artemi Panarin is the player he's had the most fun playing with it throughout his entire career, which is saying something considering how skilled Patrick Kane is. And Artemi Panarin elevates players like Kane even, and like you said, Ryan Strome. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a sign of a truly elite player. It is being able to make the most out of other players, and that's really special. And considering people didn't really know what to make of him coming over from the KHL a couple years ago, to now being the leading scorer on one of the U.S.'s biggest market teams with an original
arguably the
franchise.
biggest. I'm pretty sure it was.
I think it's most value.
The highest valued NHL franchise.
Yeah, but I think it's definitely important to note that there have been arguments that he's what might hurt his Hart Trophy case is that he might not even be the most valuable player on his own team, and that's because of Mika Zibanejad's rapid ascension up the ranks with an incredible season, which left him. If he was healthy this season, he was on pace to actually win the Rocket Richard Trophy. He would have had more goals than Ovechkin and Pasternak.
He had a 5-goal game at one point, too.
A 5-goal game.
Ridiculous.
He is an amazing shot. But he's also very reliable defensively. He's big.
He's a great playmaker
strong
as well.
Mm-hmm. And he's also a penalty killer, which is why he's so important to this team. So that's why it's interesting that there's those two top players, and Carolina has some great players too. I don't know about you, but I'm as good as Sebastian Aho is. Svechnikov's a great player, but I don't think in individual players, I don't think that they can quite match up to Panarin and Zibanejad right now.
No, just a question for you. Just like you mentioned in the past playoff breakdown, for I believe it was a goalie, Jakob Markstrom. You said that you asked me the question, do you think this is Jakob Markstrom from now and into the future? Do you think this is new Jakob Markstrom? And because of Jakob Markstrom's very rapid ascension into starting goaltending and being a star goaltender. So I'm going to ask you the same question, but in terms of Mika Zibanejad, do you think this is a one-off season for Mika Zibanejad with being this offensive number one center? Or do you think that Mika Zibanejad could potentially, if he moves on from the New York Rangers, or if he stays, could stay as the number one center?
Oh, I don't think there's any question in my mind at least that he's like this is what he's this is the end of his development path. This is where it was all going.
Yeah.
You could see signs of his offensive firepower along the way, but he Ottawa gave up on him too early to try to capitalize with Derek Brassard, and man, that doesn't look good in hindsight because this is exactly the type of player they need.
Mm-hmm.
He even had a great season last year too, so it's not even like this is a complete aberration.
Mm-hmm.
You're just seeing the maturation of this player into what you always hoped he could be. And I think he's going to be a New York Ranger for a while. I don't think they're going to let this guy go.
Yeah, definitely. Just getting on to some of the lower, not lower level players, but yeah, kind of lower level players. Kaapo Kakko, Jacob, is it Cheadle? Jacob? Is it Jacob? I don't even know. Philip Hedl. There it is. And Giuseppe, Di Giuseppe. What do you think of that, Phil Di Giuseppe? Okay, that's a very Italian name. What do you think of that line? It's very young.
Well, it's important to note that I believe that's what would usually be filled by Brendan Lemieux, but he will be serving a 2-game suspension for a hit that he made during the last game before the stoppage. I think it was Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think he's a player that he's skilled and can mix things up. So getting him back will be big for the Rangers. But Kaapo Kakko is someone that very skilled player. Obviously, even at the World Championships last year, was able to score highlight reel goals against teams like Canada.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And it's difficult coming over, especially with a language barrier and being on your own at 18. And figuring things out.
Being so young and having all that expectation, especially as a second overall pick in a large market like New York, where the spotlight is on you, an original 6 team. I mean, it's unbelievable the pressure he's been able to deal with this season, and actually performed decently well. I mean, he didn't have the most points as a rookie, like an Austin Matthews season or Patrick Laine, but he had more than Jack Hughes, I think, and he went above him in the draft, and he just had a solid season on that third line or fourth line or wherever he played. I'm pretty sure he played higher in the lineup as earlier in the season because they were just testing things out, but. I think Kaapo Kakko and that line has really those young players have really filled in their roles and are really finding their way in this young team, and players like Panarin, where these young players can learn from is an advantage in itself. So
yeah, it's important to note that Kaapo Kakko also is similar to Max Domi, has type 1 diabetes. So
I did not know that. Wow.
He is you can say, I mean, all players are sort of taking a risk, being back at their jobs and everything. But that is just something that if there gets to be any concerns, the Rangers are going to take him out. They're a lot more worried about his long term potential than this playoff run. But he's looked good in training camp so far, and when you're that young, any period of time where you get to, just keep advancing your game and getting better, you're going to benefit from. So he's someone that, could be relied upon to do some damage against a very deep Hurricanes team. Same with Philip Hedl, who's a high skill player, but has sort of lacked consistency throughout his career. We'll see. He's had glimpses, and if those glimpses can come during this 5-game series, he can be someone that can do some damage against the Hurricanes.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a lot on the forwards. So I don't have very much to say on the defense. as it's very much weaker in comparison. I think Trouba is a decent right side defenseman. D'Angelo has really stepped up. Stahl is old, but he's still decently solid. Lindgren is younger. Fox, I actually really like. He's going to be a very good player and is a decent player right now. I don't know which Smith that is. Is that Brendan Smith?
Yeah, that's Brendan Smith.
Yeah, so that's not the best first line defenseman you want, considering he wasn't he waived or something by Detroit or something? I don't even know.
No. You're thinking of Jonathan Ericsson there.
Never mind. But I just remember Brendan Smith moving around a bit.
Yeah, he played forward at points. This year. He scored a beautiful breakaway goal, top cheddar on Seric, right?
And his brother Riley Smith, almost an identical goal. I'm pretty sure. On the breakaway, the same fake shot to the backhand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a very unbalanced defense where the right side they've got three good players. I would say Adam Fox. I think he's more than a decent player right now. He's a very good player.
Okay.
A lot of his advanced stats actually put him at least tied with, if not a little bit higher than Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, especially defensively. He's super smart kid. Yeah, he had a great season, and just there's so many defensemen that he kind of got overshadowed, but he was great. And D'Angelo finally had his offense out. But for me, the key is Jacob Trouba, who got a big contract coming to the Rangers and had difficulties. His partner is actually going. We're going to talk about him on the Carolina Hurricanes, Brady Shea, who they were paired together with, who's pretty good left shot defenseman, but they did not mix well together, and they really struggled against the other team's top lines. Yeah. And so Shea ended up getting moved on because they have younger guys to deal with the Rangers moving forward. But if the Rangers are going to have any success, their defense isn't as great. They're going to have to rely on Trouba for some really tough minutes.
Yeah.
The way that he can deal with that and the Hurricanes forecheck and everything, that's a big factor for the Rangers. Trouba's a very important player for them.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. Their goaltending is actually, I know how in past episodes in terms of the Arizona Coyotes, I said they had the best tandem. You could also look at Vegas in terms of that, but I think this is the best prospective tandem because you have Georgiev and Shesterkin as even the third and second goalie, and then Lundqvist is getting older, so once he's done, you have Shesterkin and Georgiev, which is amazing. But as of right now, I think Shesterkin would actually be starting over Lundqvist. I would do that. I don't even think Lundqvist is the backup in this series. I know you have to stay loyal to your. I guess if you look at the fact that the coaches are loyal to their players and Lundqvist is a veteran for this team, and I think there would be outrage actually if he wasn't at least a backup in this series. I think he will start, but in terms of skill, I don't think he's very much better than Shesterkin or Georgiev, and he hasn't shown it this season that he is much better than them. So.
Okay, so I'll fill you in on what's been going on in Rangerville and
okay.
Training camp. I guess Rangers Town is what they like to call it.
Okay, let me hear it.
So Igor Shesterkin, the belief is he came into camp, it was his job to lose.
Yeah.
And he's done the exact opposite, where he's reinforced it even more. All three goalies have played well, but Shesterkin, I think it's pretty clear that he is the choice. Lundqvist, I don't think there's a chance Lundqvist is not dressing for a game. I don't think there's a chance he's
That's what I was
which is
thinking.
unfortunate for Georgiev.
Yeah.
But there's no chance that he's the third goalie, because it's Henrik Lundqvist. He's the lifeline of this team. At the end of the day, he still is, and he's looked even refreshed, and he has success against the Hurricanes, which is why it makes it kind of difficult to look at. But from sheer talent wise, I think Shesterkin's going to get the call, and I think it's the right one. It's just a difficult one for Lundqvist. Although, funny enough, if the Rangers are trying to get Lundqvist to waive his no trade clause, then scratching him would be an interesting way of doing so. I just don't think they would stoop to that level right now.
Very interesting. But yeah. Moving on to the Carolina Hurricanes. So, what do you think of this forward group here?
Man, it's nice, huh? I mean, even their extras.
Yeah.
Ryan Dzingle's there. He's been practicing. He's been swapping in and out with Nino Niederreiter in line rushes. So
yeah, Ryan Dzingle, who went for a pretty price from Ottawa. Yeah,
I mean, you look at that first line, and I think that line is one that, in a year or two is going to be talked about. With the line in Boston, the line in Colorado. With the three stars, when you put them together, magic can happen. They can split them up too, and diversify the attack. But I don't think Carolina really has to now. They have some decent scoring depth, and that's a dangerous line. Svechnikov specifically taking huge steps this year, and I can only imagine, what the extra months have done for his maturation as well. Once again, getting bigger, getting stronger, and just becoming more of an adult, really.
He got beat up by
filling out into his body. Yeah, wow, that was pretty bad. And this year he was a tank, though. I mean, he's coming down the wing. It's hard to push him off the puck, and especially against the Rangers' defense. They're gonna be in tough with that line.
Very strong, yeah, and he's very skilled. Yeah. His hands are unbelievable. We all know his Svechnikov or whatever.
Is it the lacrosse move? Or the Michigan or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's not to mention, though, not to take anything away from Aho and Teravainen. Yeah. There are highlights where it looks like they have, I think the video is called, plays that prove that they have one mind. Aho and Teravainen have, share the same mind, because just insane no-look backdoor passes, cross ice. It's crazy the chemistry they have. I've always told they are together.
Yeah, I've always told you I loved Teuvo Teravainen. Even when he was with Chicago, when they gave him up, I was like, that's a big mistake. He's a young, up-and-coming player who's going to be a star in the league. And he has been for Carolina for a couple of seasons now. And yeah, I couldn't agree more with Sebastian Aho. Sebastian Aho has turned into one of the top centers, I think, in the NHL, and is really improving. It seems almost every game. And Martin Necas, who is just coming up, who is in the AHL last season, who's playing decently and is prospecting to be a scorer in this league for years to come. And you just have, like you said, a bunch of just forward depth that's really seen in even the extras. So
yeah, it's. I think the one question mark up front is just exactly how Vinny Trocheck is going to fit into their system.
Yeah.
It's very. A lot of it is, aggressive forecheck, lots of speed and everything. And Trocheck, he was known as a faster player, but with an ankle injury a couple of years ago, which kind of coincided with his fall from elite production.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see kind of how he does with that speed.
Yeah. Because he's the new acquisition, kind of.
Yeah, and he hasn't had that much time to really figure it out with Carolina, along with some of their defensemen, which we'll talk about. But, I mean, overall, Jordan Staal, Justin Williams, Brock McGinn, that's a solid third line. I mean, that's a great shutdown line that could chip in with, Clutch Williams. Warren Fogle is also, he's an underrated player. He could move up in the lineup if they needed to. Got a scoring touch, physical on the forecheck. And Morgan Geekie, who is starting as their fourth-line center. Yeah, he got called up late in the season and produced some production for them. So, he could be someone. I don't think he's the typical what you'd say is a fourth line center. But 22 years old, he put up 4 points in the 2 games he played for them. So, he seems like he could be even more scoring if they even needed more forward depth.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the defense, like you were saying, I don't know if you were saying actually, but the defense is very strong, I think, in my mind. In terms of consistency of skill, I think it's a lot better than you have in New York. New York has a very strong right side and kind of lacks on the left, but this Carolina team seems to be very defense oriented and seems very strong on both sides. Even Jake Gardiner and Trevor Van Riemsdyk is a great third line pairing. I would take any day. Brady Shea coming up against his old team with Sami Vatanen on that third line. Second pairing. Vatanen just coming in new from the Devils, basically, right?
Yeah, he hasn't played any games for them because he was hurt when he was acquired.
Exactly. So he's new there, which is he's a big acquisition on that right hand defense pairing, and then Dougie Hamilton and Jacob Slavin. I think Dougie Hamilton has a lot to show this playoffs and prove his doubters wrong. Really, I think he's been said to be a problem with a lot of the teams he's been with, but I think if he really steps up this playoffs and shows his offensive production and his ability to shut down and keep players out of the zone, I think he'll really establish himself as a number 1 defenseman, which is what Boston wanted him to be when they drafted him.
I think the whole, I think it's been really overblown with Dougie Hamilton. He just seems like a different, not the typical hockey guy, which isn't a bad thing. I think it's been highlighted as a bad thing. Yeah. I don't think it is. He's a very skilled player. He loves it. He loves the team, and he seems to really be enjoying being in Carolina. Not in as big of a market such as like Boston or a Canadian team like Calgary. Yeah. I think we also have to mention Jacob Slavin in that same light of, I think they're both definitive number 1 defensemen. I think this is one of the top pairs in the NHL, especially, with them both being able to contribute at both ends, but, Slavin being one of the best shutdown defensemen, Hamilton being one of the best offensive defensemen. This is a pair that, every single team would love to have a top pair like this.
100%. Especially both handedness is perfect. Like, the fact that you have Dougie Hamilton and Sami Vatanen as your number 1 and 2 defensemen is a very strong thing going into this playoffs, I think.
I think an interesting part is how Brady Shea and Sami Vatanen fit in. Not even just, they haven't played a game together, but Brady Shea has played a few games in Carolina. Vatanen has played none. Yeah. And they're going to be playing big minutes. And they're skilled players and they have potential, but they don't have a lot of time to figure it out. Yeah. And they're going to have to go through, those ups and downs throughout training camp and this exhibition game. I'm sure you're going to see a lot of them. Yeah. I'm sure Rod Brind'Amour is going to be putting them out as much as possible just to get used to, how the goalies are passing the puck out. The type of forecheck and breakout that they go through, all that kind of thing. They don't. There's not much room for error. And Brady Shea was someone that was a stud defense. It looked like he was going to be the Rangers' number 1 defenseman going forward, and he's kind of struggled the past couple of years. And we'll see if he can recapture what he needs there.
Yeah, definitely. Anyways, going on to the goaltending, I am not a fan of this goaltending tandem at all. I don't think Mrazek is a starting goaltender in this league. I think he's a backup, but I really don't see him as being a starter. That's all I have to say, really.
I think I would take either of the 3 goalies that the Rangers have over these 2.
I 100% agree.
And that's such a weird, it's strange situation. You normally wouldn't take a third string goalie from the other team and want them, but I think the highest compliment we can give is this team is good enough to win without elite goaltending. Which, I mean, you saw. We're not going to go into it, but a certain game in Toronto. They don't need that elite goaltending, which is something that the Carolina is very much into the analytics, and that's something that has been shown from research. Like, don't spend that much money on goaltending because you can find good enough goaltending. It's more important to have the team around them.
Yeah, that defense is strong enough too.
Yeah, I just think man, Robin Lehner didn't go for that much, and they were making trades. They acquired both Shea and Vatanen. I can't help but think, a Robin Lehner on this team, to me, would scream cup contender.
Yeah.
Like absolute cup contender.
Kidding. No kidding.
They're still close, but I see them more as a dark horse just because you never know.
100%. Yeah. So at the end of the day, Eric, the big question is, who's winning the series?
Oh man. Oh, this one I keep going back and forth on, which is weird because, as I just said, like, I think Carolina could really go all the way. They showed it last year. They beat Washington. They swept the Islanders. And my head says Carolina's the better team overall. I mean, Rangers don't have the depth up front to match up, or really the defense to deal with what's coming at them. And I know that Brind'Amour is going to have them tuned up for the series. And it's really strange, and I can't really explain it, but I have a gut feeling that the Rangers are going to win somehow. It's a best of 5 series. I think Shesterkin is going to cause some shenanigans, as you might say. And it's weird, but I mean, this great Carolina team, they were one of the teams that voted against the return to play format because they felt disadvantaged, and they lost all 4 games against the Rangers in season.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think Carolina's a better team, but I think the Rangers are going to win.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with you, but for a different reason other than just Shesterkin. I think Artemi Panarin is just going to light up Mrazek or Reimer, depending on which one is unlucky enough to face him. I think Zibanejad and Panarin, that combination on 2 different lines is gonna be overwhelming for this goaltending, and is not going to be able to handle it. I know that has a great defense, and it's going to be hard to get past that, but those players are players that are known for getting into areas past great defenses, and if they can get shots on these goaltenders that aren't the strongest, I think they're going to win the series.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I don't want to get twisted. I think Carolina are their favorites. I just think something weird is going on.
I agree. I think I have a gut feeling as well.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So anyways, that's been another playoff breakdown with the Seric Show, and we'll catch you next time.